Okay, I think we can begin the session now. So, as everyone knows, today we have Thabiso from Intellect. She's gonna just give us some like graduate recruitment tips and graduate programs that are available at Intellect. And yeah, I'm sure we're all excited, so I'll hand over to Thabiso to begin the session.
Right, evening everyone. Thank you so much for this opportunity to the Dev Society at UNISA. I know there's a big match on, so I'm going to try my best not to take too much time. But I think a big round of applause to everybody that showed up today. I think that's the first step in taking your career seriously. So we are going to have a bit of a conversation today, mainly about, like launching your career in tech, a bit about Intellect, what it is that we do. I'll give some tips in terms of preparing for like technical interviews, not just for Intellect, but I think as you interview with different organizations, how to, position yourself as a top candidate. So I am going to share my screen. Your presentation. Okay. Oh, please let me know once you guys can see my slides. All right, can you?
Yes,
Oh,
we
perfect.
can see the slides.
All right, perfect. So I think the main purpose for today is to obviously launch your career. So I am obviously within the recruitment space at Intellect, but I have been working within the HR space and recruitment space for about 8 years. And I am very passionate about young talent. I'm passionate about, helping young individuals get their foot in the door. I think that's like the most important thing for me. And so today we want to talk about how do you move from being a student and becoming a working professional, how to position yourself for graduate opportunities and internships, and also acing your interviews, right? So just in the next slide, this is what we will cover. So basically, it all starts with the mindset shift. So how do you then move from being a student to now becoming a working professional? I'll tell you a bit about Intellect, who we are, our culture, our values, and then we'll also then look at graduates and internship opportunities that are at Intellect, and also what we look for at Intellect in terms of our candidates. But it's not only limited to Intellect. I think it would, apply to most organizations as well. And then we'll chat a bit around how do you go about acing your interviews, right? So we're looking at fit interviews, your technical rounds, how do you prepare for those? And then as well as some advice in terms of like career growth, what you can realistically achieve with the career that you're going in. And I'm assuming that most people that are on this call are doing either BSc computing or something within the computer science, informatics, IT space. Cool. So let's start with the first section, the mindset shift. Um, it starts all in the mind, right? It starts in the head. That's where everything starts before it shows up everywhere else. And I think the important thing is to realize that you are slowly transitioning from being a student to now being a working professional, right? So what does that actually mean? So when you are a student, your main focus is learning to pass your assessments. You are very grade driven. It's about getting that cum laude. It's about getting that 80. Your deadlines are set for you by your lecturers, etc. You work alone or you work in specific groups for specific projects. And when it comes to feedback, that to you is a rubric, right? So feedback is, did I tick all these necessary things on the rubric? When we talking about the mindset shift and going into the working world and now becoming a professional, it does become a bit of a challenge when it's something that you're not prepared for, because when you are transitioning from varsity into the working world, there's a lot that changes, right? It's no more about how you pass or pass in your assessments. Now it's about what value are you creating? What value are you adding? It's no more about your grades. It's about the impact that you're bringing. It's no more about deadlines. It's about, are you self-managed? Can you deliver? If you're not going to be able to deliver on time, can you communicate that with your team? Can you manage expectations realistically? It's no more about working alone. Like, honestly, when you get into the work environment, you are working with people every single day. And the idea is that when you are a software engineer or you are in the IT space, it's all about you and your PC. Don't have to talk to people. That's why I'm getting into this career. I have a news flash for you, okay? You will have to talk to people. 80% of your job is people. The other 20 is the coding. Just to bring it back to reality is that you're not going to be sitting in some room somewhere just coding away, don't have to talk to people. Being a software engineer requires you to code. It's not like they show it on the movies. So there's going to be a lot of collaborating across many teams. So I think it's about getting comfortable with that now while you're in your schooling to get comfortable with working with people, even with people that you don't know. Getting comfortable with that, because realistically, that's what the professional environment requires. And then in terms of feedback, that becomes your fastest growing tool in industry. Feedback is this work is not great, you could have done better, right? Feedback is you delivered, oh, okay, cool, great. Feedback is sometimes going to feel like it's a personal attack, but you always need to remember that it's not about you. It's no reflection about you. It's mainly just the work that's being provided. And some people take it personally. And I've seen a lot of grads get into the work environment and they struggle with taking feedback. They feel like, oh my gosh, my manager hates me or my team doesn't like me. And it's about making sure that you remove the personal element from it. It's not that we don't like you. It's just we're giving you feedback so you can do better the next time, right? So that's where the mindset shift comes in. And then this is basically a graduate wish list. This is basically some of the qualities that help grads get hired. And once you're hired, get you promoted, right? I think most important thing, as you can see, some of these things are not really technical. These are more soft skills, and this is what I would like to call power skills. And with your power skills, it's things like communication. Are you able to explain a complex idea simply, right? Are you able to walk into a room with a client that doesn't really know much technical stuff, but you're able to explain it for them to get it? Do you listen well? Do you write clearly your emails, right? Your slang jargon doesn't really work in the workplace. It's about understanding there's a time and place for it. When it comes to problem solving, how do you show your thinking, right? How do you break down a challenge? It's quite important. It's not about how you got it solved. It's about the process of getting it solved. That's more important. Like, how do you get to that is quite important. Collaboration, like I mentioned, is something that's going to come up a lot, right? Teamwork is important. So your group projects and the clubs, like you guys being part of the UNISA Dev Society, getting involved in that, that really does help build up your collaboration skills, and it does get you prepared for the work environment. So if you're not part of a club or society, if you're not really keen on working on group projects, I would advise that you kind of get into the, I guess, like the motion and stuff of getting into working in group projects. It really does help. And right, in the workplace, as you guys prepare for going into industry, it's all about taking the initiative. The person who sits back and is like, that's not my problem, is not likely going to get promoted very quickly, right? But the person that's like, there's a problem there. This is an idea I have. Oh, okay, cool. Actually, we didn't realize that. Oh, so and so, run with it, right? You're showing initiative, you're showing drive, you're not just sitting back waiting to be told. You're going, you're achieving, you're like, okay, I want to do this, I'm going to do this. And I think managers love that in graduates that they hire, someone who shows initiative, like, oh, I see there's a gap here, and I think these are the ideas that I have to solve that gap. And most of the time they say, okay, fine, run with it. And maybe a senior will overlook that, right? So showing initiative and drive is quite important. And I think one of the most important things is also having a growth mindset. You need to be curious. You need to be comfortable with learning on the job. You need to be comfortable with taking feedback that also comes with a growth mindset. And professionalism is quite important. And I will say, like, to everybody that has showed up on the call, like I mentioned, there's a big game going on. But showing up on the call today shows that professionalism. It shows that, listen, I am very much more concerned about how do I position myself for future opportunities. But, punctuality is very important. Being able to follow through. If you say you're going to do something, get it done, right? Don't wait for your manager to remind you to say, hey, you said you were going to follow through with what you do. Your tone in emails is also quite important, as well as having a reputation for being early is so much better than having a reputation for being late. So, those are some of the things that can help you get hired, help you get promoted when you get into the workplace. So a bit about Entelect. So I think at Entelect, we are very much a culture-first tech consulting company, right? And potentially for some of you on this call, this might be an organization where you find yourself next year or in a couple of years' time. And with Entelect, we provide end-to-end tech services and solutions to our clients. So basically, from banking to insurance to telecom to retail to healthcare. There's quite a lot of clients that we have, and we basically provide them with custom software. So our software it's not like a copy and paste. It's very designed specific for that organization, for that environment, for that industry, right? So we were founded in 2001 in the engineering department at WITS, and we are now in 4 continents, being we have South Africa. So our head office is in Johannesburg because we were obviously founded in Johannesburg. So we have a head office in Johannesburg. We have an office in Cape Town, in Pretoria, in Durban, in the UK, the Netherlands, New Zealand, Zimbabwe, and recently India as well, right? And I think I mentioned Australia. And a nice fun fact is that our CEO or most of our senior leadership, they started as graduates at Entelect. So 35% of our intellectuals started off as grads. So there is that growth element that we really appreciate and that we love at Entelect, is that our people, we put people first before the money, I'd like to say, because obviously in consulting, it's all about money, all about clients. But for us, we understand that if you take care of the people will take care of the business, right? So we have grown. We have about over 2,000 professionals that are working within the organization. And it's a company that's run by technical people. So our CEO is a technical person. He's coded before. He understands code. He can read code, all the way down to our grads. It's technical people. Don't ask me. I can't read code, but I do understand the lingo. So I mean, we have engineers, we have analysts, we have designers, we have data specialists. It's quite a wide variety, but obviously our main craft is the software engineering side of things. And a nice tip, we have been recognized as the fastest growing Africa's fastest growing companies for 3 years now. And we recently have been awarded, Graduate Employer of Choice with SIGIA since 2024. So one in 2024, one about 2 last year as well. So it's quite an organization that is growing. And I think a lot of people, when they hear of Entelect, it's always a thing of like, oh, it's a company that I want to work for. And it's definitely an organization that does take care of their people. So in terms of our values, right? So we're a very culture-first organization. We don't work off of, when you think of consulting, you think, oh, we usually hire for projects, etc. That's not the case. So we hire the best, and then we give them what they need to become more, right? And that's why our employees, we call ourselves intellectuals. Everybody's an intellectual at Entelect. It's a nice play on words. But some of our values is growth isn't optional. So we are very big on continuous learning, and that shows up in, the learning and development opportunities that are there. We have tech talks, we have things like dev days, we have upskilling, we have our boot camp for our graduates when they're coming in. We have so many different channels for our people to grow. And we always say that if you're not growing, then there's something wrong, right? There's then a misalignment, because being in an environment like Intellect, you're constantly forced to grow. Not forced, but I think our people like it, right? And I mean, we do reward people that are constantly learning, which is quite lovely. And then we are very,
Sorry.
yes.
Sorry, Thabiso, just to come in quickly. I'm not sure if the slide hasn't changed for everyone else or if it's just on my side.
Okay, is everybody seeing the culture first slide?
Yes, I'm seeing that you can change the slides on your own. On the bottom, there are two arrows, and then that's where you can change the slides.
Okay, thank you.
Are you guys seeing the culture first one?
Yes, I use the arrows now to get to that part of the slide. I'm just concerned about whether that will show up in the recording.
Let me do that. Are we able to see it now?
Yes, yes.
Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing for a bit because I think it's a bit confusing because I'm sharing from, and then I'm gonna share my screen rather.
Okay.
Give me a second. Sorry about that, guys. All right, can you guys see the presentation?
Yes, we can see it now.
All right, perfect. So with the Culture First organization, so we're on people and fellowship. So we believe in building very strong relationships at Intellect, and those relationships go far beyond just your team, right? So I mean, we have different social clubs. There's like over 200 social clubs, honestly. We will say if you can think of a social club, go for it, start it, have fun. But we have things like rock climbing, we have running, we have paddle, we have tennis, we have book club, we have games night, we have chess club, we have hiking, sure, we have swimming. Like there's just so many clubs, and that is just another way where we are able to build those relationships and make sure that we're building relationships even far beyond the team. And it also helps with collaboration. I think one thing I have particularly enjoyed about working at Intellect is that you can walk up to anybody and ask them a question and they will have time for you. Like they will literally have time for you. And if they don't have time for you at that moment, they will get back to you a few minutes later, right? And then we have excellence and craft, which what we say at Intellect is getting things done. So we believe that we hire adults at Intellect. So it's not about we're going to be constantly looking over your shoulder, but we also want to deliver the best work that there is to our clients, right? And with that, it needs to be work that you are proud of. So, things like best practices, code reviews, a deep appreciation for the craft that you do is quite important. And we also have what we call the Intellect Foundation, which is a way of us giving back, right? So that's where we take about 10% of our profits and we put it into education, grants, IT training, and also just uplifting communities. So that's a bit about the Culture First organization that we lead at Intellect. So let's get to what we're all here about, the graduate opportunities and how do I get into Intellect's graduate program and what is the graduate program and how does it work, etc. Right? So we'll talk about our graduate program. So we have what we call a boot camp at Intellect. And with our boot camp, I think I want to stress this very much because I think with a lot of grad programs, people have this PTSD like, okay, I'm going to do this program for X amount of months or years, and then I must still wait to hear if the company is going to make me permanent. Intellect doesn't do that. So we hire you from day one as a permanent employee. So if you go through the interview process with us, we like you, we like definitely, yes, this is someone that we want in the organization. We will then employ you as a full-time permanent employee at Intellect. So all our grads that you see that come in every year, they are permanent employees from day one, right? So it's a full-time job, you're paid, you have permanent employee benefits as well. And basically you then go through 10 weeks of training. So our boot camp is 10 weeks. And for that, we believe that in tech, you learn more by actually doing the work than like learning lecture style. So instead of you learning for a whole year, we're like, nope, learn for 10 weeks. We basically take all the information you would have learned in a year, put it in 10 weeks, and it's fully understanding the full software development life cycle, understanding, the new technologies that are coming up, understanding some of the technologies that our clients use as well. What is happening in industry? How do you apply that on client projects, etc.? It is very intensive, but it's also hands-on training, right? It's not about just learning, but it's also about building and understanding how you solve problems and how to approach the problem space. Okay, so you have the 10 weeks, which kicks off in January. And then once in that 10 weeks, there's a lot, it's also sort of like varsity style, so almost like a lecture style, which isn't like a quick, hard adjustment, because obviously you'll be coming from varsity, but in that it's also quite rapid, right? Because there are deliverables in that, there are demos that you guys will do, there are projects that you will be building during that boot camp. And once the boot camp is done, or not once it's done, but during boot camp, you'll also get mentorship from our leadership. So this goes from the CEO, the COO, the CIO, some of the senior leadership in the organization as well. They will be there to be able to provide you with that mentorship as well, so that you understand what is expected of you as you prepare to, be immersed into industry. All right. So how do you know if you're eligible for our grad program? So basically, if you're studying the following qualifications, so BSc Computer Science, Engineering. With the engineering, it would be mechatronics, electrical, but going the information route. It would be mechanical. It's a bit of a tricky one, and chemical are a bit of a tricky one. Those ones usually go like the business analyst route, but your BCom, your IS, your BIS, your honors or masters, anything related within the IT space, right? And it has to be a degree. Unfortunately, we do not look at diplomas. And a lot of people always ask me, oh, why don't you look at diplomas? I think there is a level of depth that comes within the degree, or the 3 years that you learn within the degree, especially when it comes to the fundamentals that we're really looking for. And it just makes it easier when you're going through boot camp as well. And then in terms of academic results, obviously an average roughly in your upper 60s, so 65% and above, is quite important, right? A lot of people will say, oh my gosh, course is bad. What do you mean? Look, this is obviously the entrance requirements. And I always say that before I meet you and I have a conversation with you, the first thing I'm going to see is your transcripts and your CV. So try to make sure that those stand out a bit better in terms of like, you can like maybe first year wasn't great, but you picked up your socks in second year. That's fine. That's great. We're not going to penalize you for that. But I think putting in the effort to know that before I meet you, I'm meeting your CV. So your CV and your transcript. So sometimes transcripts might not be great, but the CV is good, right? Like what's in the CV? You've listed some of the projects that you've worked on. Could be school projects, it could be personal projects. That's perfectly fine. You've listed some of the things that you've gotten involved in, if you were involved in a couple of things, things that you do in your spare time when you're not busy with school. So maybe volunteering at a community, being a tutor to young kids, all of those things kind of work well towards your CV, right? And then our grad program is mainly for South African citizens, or if you have a perm res or a valid asylum seeker visa, that is also the main requirements for that. And we obviously do credit and criminal checks when we do get to offer stage. And then in terms of the personal attributes, strong language, strong English communication. Attention to detail is also quite important. You need to be able to grow, and you also need to be good at relationship building, right? Working with others is also quite important. All right. Cool. And then in terms of the recruitment timeline and the different streams that we offer, so we in our grad program offer software engineering, data engineering, and business analysis. Software engineering being the bulk of where our hire comes from. The data engineering and the business analysis spots are quite limited and quite competitive as well. So we only take really a handful of those ones. And with, like I mentioned, the bulk of our hiring comes from the software engineering side of things, right? And then in terms of just a typical timeline, so our applications have been open since Jan. So if you haven't started applying, I would suggest that after this call, you start applying. So we have had our applications open since Jan. We usually open our applications all year round. And we have started with our interviews. We started in April, started with our interviews. We've already hired a couple of people for next year. So again, please get to applying as soon as possible. And in terms of offers, usually around September, November, we would have already extended offers, started preparing for Jan. So, I mean, I would highly advise that if you haven't started applying, not just for Intellect's grad program, but for most organizations' grad programs, I would suggest that you do apply as soon as possible. Most of them are open, and I think most of them will close by the end of August or September. So I would suggest that one of the things that you're doing during your recess or during your break is applying, right? And then what do we look for, right? So academic marks are a strict requirement, right? But here's how you get to winning an offer or how you get to get past the next stage. So we have some technical skills and soft skills is quite important. So an individual with a strong computer science fundamentals, so data structures, algorithms, OOP is quite important. You need to be at least comfortable in any of these languages, whether it's Java, C#, Python, JavaScript, C++, some comfortability with coding in those languages. You know, being able to problem solve and have logical reasoning under pressure is quite important. Databases, SQL, basics of the web as well, and a methodological approach to debugging and solution design, right? And then in terms of your soft skills, clear verbal and written English communication. And I cannot stress this enough, guys. And the reason for this is because we are a consulting company. And remember, I said at the beginning of the call that the first, 80% of your work is people and 20% is the code. So it is quite important to be able to communicate effectively, to get your points across effectively, because you will be sitting with stakeholders and they will be asking you questions. You're not going to be sitting in some room coding away. You know, you're going to have to present sprints sometimes to clients. So being able to communicate is very important. I think it's also very clear that you need to be passionate about the work that you're doing, being able to be passionate about problem solving, building, you know, solutioning is quite important, and the hunger to learn. So that goes back to our values where growth isn't optional. You want to be someone in a position that's constantly learning and being a team player as well, which then goes back to another value about collaboration, you know, being able to build strong relationships. It will work in your favor. And it will work well for you. And being also very go-getter, like I said, initiative and drive. You know, you solutions focused, you're up for the challenge, you see a problem, you're like, okay, how do I solve this problem? You're not waiting to be told to solve the problem, right? Cool. And the million-dollar question I always get asked during screening calls when I'm having a conversation with students is, how do I stand out? What can I do to stand out, right? I'll say to you, protect your marks. Being in the upper 60s, that's great, but also understand that if I get a CV with a 80% and I have a CV with a 60, I'm gonna probably look at the 80 before the 60, right? But keep your averages up in the upper 60s, especially when it comes to your programming subjects. Maths, yes, but we're not going to penalize you, okay? Because university mathematics is a bit tough. But you know, being able to keep it in the upper 60s, build beyond your syllabus or whatever you're learning, your coursework. So I mean, not everybody has the time to do side projects. I would suggest like start something. It doesn't have to be complete, but if you have it on your GitHub and it shows that, okay, I started something, I started working on this, this is the plan, this is ideally what I want to see the outcome of this project being, and you're slowly contributing to it, it works so much better than having like 10,000 projects that were made by Claude Code and you don't even know how to explain it, right? And we'll be able to catch it out because we'll ask you simple questions like, oh, what did you use on the back end for this? And what did you work on this on? Why did you use this language, etc.? And some people get caught in their tracks and you're like, okay, cool, Claude did it, right? So try build small projects. They don't have to be complete projects, but you know, having something to say, okay, over and above what I'm doing at school, I'm now being able to apply myself. I've, you know, gotten involved in hackathons. Entelect, we host a university cup every year. We had one in May, if I'm not mistaken. We're going to have another one either now in June or July. Get involved in the University Cup, understand like, oh, okay, these are the type of hackathons that they are. This is the type of problem solving that they're looking for. And it also just challenges you as well. And it also shows that there's genuine passion for the craft, right? Being visible and engaged, you know, joining societies like Dev Society and the UNICEF Dev Society is very helpful. Attending the career fairs at university, guys, I cannot stress how important that is. It's quite important. And yeah, I mean, getting your open day invites, that's what we have at Entelect in terms of our interview process. We have what we call an open day. So, you know, finding a way to be visible to get to that point where you can get in for an interview. And then communicate like a pro, right? So being able to explain your projects, like I mentioned earlier, is very important. And whether it be your school projects, whether it be personal projects. So it shouldn't be a thing of like, oh yeah, we worked on this project at school and yeah, this is what we built and that was that. You know, being able to say, this is the tools that we use, the language that we used. I worked on the back end. This is what I was doing on the back end. This is what we use for databases, the reason that we use it. Like being able to fully articulate yourself. And basically being able to articulate your thinking is also something that helps you stand out as well. Cool. And now we get to acing the interview. How do I now make sure that I walk away with that offer, right? How do I make sure that I don't get filtered out? So in the fit interview, this is where it would usually be a screening call. It would usually be a some people have it as a screening call, some people have it involved in the interview, but it's more or less about, are you a good fit for this organization, right? Are you someone that we see ourselves working with? And there are like 4 different ones, 4 different things that we look at. It's not about small talk. It might feel like, oh, this feels like small talk, but it's not about small talk. The recruiter's looking for little small signs here and there, right? So there's more behavioral questions that you get asked. And you basically need to fully understand like, okay, cool, this, you can prep for it, but sometimes it can catch you off guard. But it's things like self-awareness, right? Being able to say, okay, these are my strengths, these are my growth areas. You know, you are not overselling yourself and you're not underselling yourself, right? You are self-aware of where you're really good at and where you need to grow. Because some people are just like, I'm great, I'm great, I'm great, I'm great, I'm great, I'm great, I'm great. That's overselling, because definitely there has to be a weakness. Communication is going to keep coming up, right? Being able to explain your thinking clearly, listening properly, being able to answer what was actually being asked by the recruiter. Again, there are people that do go off on a tangent, and sometimes it's quite important to practice this, especially if you know that you're someone who takes a long route to get to where you need to get to, right? So communication is very important. And then problem and ownership, right? So when someone goes like wrong on the team, do you take responsibility? Do you deflect, right? Is it a thing of like, oh no, it was all their fault? Are you able to take ownership and be like, okay, yeah, as a team, I can see where we went wrong. We could have done A, B, C, D, but we actually did X, Y, Z, right? Being able to acknowledge that is quite important. So this will come up in questions like your conflict management. How do you handle conflict, etc. And then in terms of your motivation and drive, why are you in this industry? Why Entelect, for example, but it could be why Standard Bank, why BBD, why any other organization that you're applying for. Why now? Why do you feel that you're a good fit for that organization? And what effort looks like for you, right? So being able to understand, like, I get it. Sometimes the why could be, I just need a job. And that's perfectly fine, right? We're not going to penalize you for that. But I think taking the time to actually research the organization. Sometimes a lot of students, what I've seen is you guys would apply for so many jobs, so many jobs, so many jobs. And eventually one of them calls you. And now you're sitting in a fit interview or screening with the recruiter. And the recruiter's like, okay, so what made you apply to Entelect? And it's like, I really didn't research much. I was just applying, and yeah, my thing is to help you with that. I would suggest keeping a little book or a notepad or note page open where you make a note of all the companies that you've applied for and you do your research. And I think having top 5 companies that you like, this is companies I'm keen on, you do your research on them, you understand what those companies do, and then you are then able to talk to the why when you are asked that question. Right. Cool. So there's this method that I like using and that I always recommend grads to use, especially as they're preparing for interviews, etc. It's called the STAR method, right? So it's situation, task, action, result, all right? So what it is situation. So you set the scene. So for example, the recruiter will say, tell me about a time, or not tell me about a time. Okay, let's talk about your final year project. What is it about? Right, situation. My final year project, my team and I are creating, or we are building a e-commerce system for a bakery. All right, cool. In that, with the e-commerce system, the task, I am responsible for the backend, and with the backend, I am using JavaScript, for example, and with the databases, we're going to be using MongoDB, right? Guys, don't crucify me. I'm not technical like that. And then action points. Okay, what did you do, right? So what I did, this is where you use I, not we. What did I do? So what the action point? So this is how I took the information, the data information, and I put it in the backend, etc. This is now the action part. And then the results, right? What was the outcome? The outcome was that we were able to build a successful e-commerce system, and it therefore cut down, it helped the bakery from moving to a paper-based to now an online system, etc. in that sense, right? So you think of the different situations, not situations, but the different stories, I'd say stories that you want to tell, but it would be related to the projects that you've worked on, right? And it will be, tell me about a time where you, is usually how the conversation will come up, and then you'll have your STAR method in the situation, task, action, result, right? So you can prepare about 3 to 4 STAR stories where you can prepare them to say, okay, if they ask me about a time about conflict, this is what I'm going to say. If they ask me about my final year project, this is what I'm going to say. If they ask me about the side project that I'm working on, this is what I'm going to say, right? Some of the questions that you'll usually face, tell me about yourself. It is not a trick question. It is not a dating question. We are not trying to catch you out. We literally want to know about yourself, right? We want to know who you are, where you're coming from, what drives you, what do you enjoy doing, your hobbies, your interests. Like, we want to get to know you as an individual, right? Which is quite important. And I think a lot of people, when a recruiter says, tell me about yourself, you're like, yo, I don't know where do I start? What do you want to know? Like, just talk about who you are as an individual. My name is Thabiso. I am a talent acquisition consultant. I have been within the industry for about 8 years now, and it's something that I really enjoy. I enjoy working with young people within the graduate recruitment space when I am not busy being on the professional side of things. I'm a mom, I have a son, I am married, so I enjoy spending time with my family. And, I dabble in a bit of photography from time to time. And, I really enjoy going out, trying out new food as well. And, these are the hobbies that I'm interested in. I've recently taken up tennis. It's something that I enjoy. That is where you're having a conversation and the recruiter is getting to know you. So that's where tell me about yourself comes from. I know it's always such a hard question to answer because you don't know, do I talk about my school career? Do I talk about myself? What does the recruiter want to know? We want to know everything, right? And then we also want to know, why do you want to be in this field? It's also quite important, right? It's like, why do you want to be a software engineer? Why do you want to be a business analyst? Why do you want to be a data engineer? It's not like, yes, I want to be a software engineer because there's money. Okay, cool, great. But there has to be a why behind it. There has to be a reason why you studied this degree for 3 years. You allowed it to traumatize you for 3 to 4 years. Like, what is the why behind that's driving you, right? And then, like I mentioned, again, describe a time you disagreed with a teammate. That's where the STAR method will come. Talk about a project you're proud of and one that you're not so proud of. How do you handle feedback you disagree with? All those type of things. That's where you are then able to use your STAR method, right? Cool. And then what works and what doesn't work in a fit interview? Firstly, like I mentioned, important to research the company, right? What they do, their clients, their recent news, anything, any awards that they've achieved, etc. That's why having that notepad or that book handy of the companies that you've applied for is quite important, right? So that if you know, I'm applying to Entelect, cool. This is information about Entelect. These are the links. This is their culture site. This is what I've got from their culture site. This and this and this. Why do you think this company is a good fit for you? Okay, you have that unlocked. I've applied to Standard Bank. This and this and this. Why do you think this company is a good fit for you? Cool. You've answered those questions so that when those questions do come up in the interview, you're able to know, okay, I applied to Entelect. This is what I need to prepare for. This is what Entelect's about, right? Also speak about some examples. So basically hackathons that you've been part of, the projects that you've worked on, the group work that you've done is also quite important. And guys, be honest, right? We're not here to catch you out. We are definitely not looking for people with experience. I personally, as a recruiter, a grad recruiter, I have no expectation of any grad having like 2 years of experience. If you do, I can't get you on my grad program because like you have 2 years of, especially if it's relevant. Like, no, I have no expectation of that. Be honest about your gaps, right? I haven't used it. I don't know that, but I'm willing to learn, right? This is how I go about using AI. This is what I use AI for. I use it to help me A, B, C, D. Some people like, I don't use AI at all. Like, no, don't lie. We do use AI, right? So be honest with the recruiter. We're not here to catch you guys out. Ask thoughtful questions, right, about the organization, the team, the tech that the company uses, the mentorship that they offer as well is quite important. Ask those questions. Like, think through the questions when you're going in for that interview. Sit down and fully understand, like, what is it that I want to know about this organization? I always give grads a tip to say, when you go into an interview, right? And sometimes we go in and we're nervous, we don't know what's going to happen in the interview. I always say, think of it as you also being an interviewer, right? This is a company that you don't know. The company doesn't know you. We don't know each other, right? It's also important for you to make sure that this company that you saw online, you read about, you feel like, this is a nice company for me. It is also your opportunity to interview them, to interview if really this is an organization for me. Am I going to fit in this organization? So when you come in with that mindset, it removes the nerves and you become more relaxed and you can easily engage and ask the questions that you need to ask, right? Show curiosity. It's very important. what you build for fun matters. Remember, I mentioned that you can have a project on GitHub that's maybe not done yet. That's fine, but it shows curiosity. It shows that you're willing to go over and above what you're learning, to better your skills. So these are things that you need to avoid. I'm a hard worker. Don't tell us, show us. Okay, don't claim. You need to show us. So things like I'm a hard worker. Okay, great, but we'd rather see that. Trash talking your lecturers, your university, your group members. Don't do that, right? If maybe you were part of a group and maybe it didn't go out so well, it's just like, oh, we had our differences. It didn't really work out well. But, if you guys managed to get the job done, we managed to get the job done. Saying this group member was so horrible and they did this and they did that. You don't want to have that, because in a way, it shows us, what you would probably do in the work environment, right? Memorize scripts, please. So we know when you are naturally speaking, and we can tell, and by we I mean recruiters, and we can tell when you're reading off of something, right? So my name is, and and I really like to, and I am very passionate about, and I like, whoa, pause, breathe, speak naturally, right? Have a conversation. Most of the time with interviews, it's a conversation. It's back and forth. I want to get to know you. You telling me about yourself. Have a conversation. Be yourself. Be authentic, right? Saying things like, I have no weaknesses. There's no gaps. I work very hard. Hey, don't lie to us, okay? Avoid those as well. No questions at the end. Please, guys, try and ask questions. Sometimes you could have questions prepared, and during that conversation, the recruiter will answer the questions that you have prepared. Just say, I did have questions prepared, but I think going through the conversation, you managed to answer most of those questions, so I'm fine for now. It shows that, oh, okay, this person actually had questions, but we managed to cover that in the conversation, right? But not coming in and, you're just there and there's no questions at the end. It shows that you didn't do your research, it just shows disinterest. So let's try and avoid that. All right. Cool. And then in terms of the technical interview, with the technical interview, it's not about knowing everything, right? It's about how you think that is most important. And some technical interviews are different, and these they compromise with these different type of interviews that I have listed here. So you have live coding, you have problem solving, you have concepts and fundamentals, and then you have project deep dive, right? So it's very important to also read the invites. Some of the companies will tell you, like, okay, this is the language you need to, this is the language we're going to test you in. This is the format of the interview. So it's also quite important to read the invites. In terms of live coding, this is where you'll get a small problem on a shared editor, and you'll have about 20 to 40 minutes to solve the problem, right? This could be, they'll say, okay, you can code in a language that you're comfortable with. Here's the problem. How would you solve it? And then you'd be asked to code, right? And then there would be the problem solving side of things. So this is usually more on the whiteboard problem solving, where you have to walk them through your approach to a problem, right? So sometimes it'd be writing code on an actual board, your string reversal theory to a problem that they're asking you. It could be a different question where they just want to see how you think in terms of like problem solving and approaching problem solving. And then you have your concepts and your fundamentals. So this could be where they're testing you on your object-oriented programming, your data structures, your complexities, your databases, version control. All of these are usually at a graduate level, right? And then there's project deep dive. So where they will pick something off of your CV and they'll say why, how, what would you change? How did it work, etc. That's where you need to then be able to explain your project. So if you said you worked on this specific project or you built this project, they'll pick it up from your CV and they'll say, okay, cool, tell us about this project. And then they will obviously nitpick it. Why did you use that language? Why didn't you use this language? How did it work? Or what are some of the challenges that you came across, etc. So these are just some of the different methods that you would get in a technical interview when it comes to within the tech space and grad roles, right? And then when you are doing a live coding problem, I did put together like a 5-step loop, right? Again, the interviewer really cares more about the process than the final answer. It's more about how you approach the problem space, how you approach thinking, right? So first things first, you always have to restate the problem. So confirm your understanding of what is being said, and that also allows you time to think about how you're going to then approach this problem. And then you're going to then say, okay, you're going to clarify with some of the examples to say, okay, empty input, negative, duplicates, ask, right? You ask questions before you code so you can get clarity. And then you talk through your approach. Very important, right? You need to talk through your approach. Like, ask, am I optimizing the code? Am I coding first? What do I need to do? And then you need to code. In coding, you need to narrate what you're doing. Okay. Don't code in silence, please. It's going to make the interviewers very uncomfortable because we don't know what you're doing. So you need to walk us through what you're doing. Say what you're doing as you type. Like I said, it's going to make us nervous if you're quiet. So I am doing this, I am moving this to this, and I am opening this bracket. Guys, I will say I'm not technical. I'm opening this bracket, I'm adding this here, this prime number here, etc. Take us through your thinking process. And then you then test and reflect, right? Do a small input through, mention some of the edge cases, the complexities, test it, reflect. Oh, where did I go wrong? Oh, okay, cool. I think I went wrong here, etc. If you get stuck, you need to say so out loud. Being stuck in silence is not going to help, right? So if you get stuck in like, I think I'm a bit stuck here. Can you please clarify 1, 2, 3, 4? That allows the interviewers to also then engage with you, and it allows us to see your thinking process. Okay. Cool. So pre-plan and mistakes to avoid. So this is basically like a 4-week prep plan. Sometimes you don't have 4 weeks, but I think as you're going into now the season of going to apply for grad programs, etc., this is some of the things that you can basically start planning and start, preparing yourself so that when you do get that call for that interview, you're ready, you can tackle that interview, right? So basically, it's solidifying your fundamentals. If you feel like your fundamentals are a bit shaky, start solidifying that, your arrays, your strings, your maps, your recursions, your big O's, your object-oriented programming, get into the fundamentals, right? Then practice your problems. So lead code, I always suggest lead code. It's really great, especially for things like problem optimizations, your string reversal theories, etc. Start from easy, go to medium, do about 3 to 5 a week as a practice. You don't need to do 50, please, guys. I think 3 to 5 a week is good enough. It's literally just to help your brain to keep going so that when you see a problem similar to that, you kind of understand what you need to do. And when you are busy with your lead code exercises, talk while you code, right? Record yourself, do mock interviews, talk while you are coding, talk while you are problem solving so that you can get comfortable with that. And then obviously pick about 2 projects that you want to talk about during your call or your interview, and make sure that you know them deeply, right? So have them on your GitHub as well, and understand those projects in and out from databases, like the databases you use, etc., everything. And if you do have them on GitHub and you are on a call with the interviewer and it's an online call, it's always nice to say, maybe can I share my screen and can I take you through the project that I have? That's a nice touch. And then in terms of the mistakes that cost you, like I mentioned, don't code in silence, please. We can't help you or score you if we can't hear you. Pretending to know. If you don't know, it's okay to not know. All right? It is okay to not know. Instead of bluffing and trying to make it seem as if you know, that kind of gives you a negative score. Rather say, I don't know. That's so much better. Then we can work from what you don't know to now you knowing. And then jumping, so you get into an interview, okay, we need to code. Now you just start coding. You haven't clarified, there's no plan, there's nothing. You need to first plan, you need to first understand, get clarifying questions, understand what the process is, and then you start coding, right? And then treating it as a test. Your interviews are not a test, guys. It's not a test. That's why I say it's not something you should be nervous about. And it's easier said than done, right? But it's not a test. This is a conversation that you need to have, because you need to remember that the people that you're sitting in an interview with, you're probably going to be on a project with them one day. So have a conversation with them as if they're your future teammates, right? Have a conversation that is flowing. Chasing trendy frameworks over solid fundamentals. So everybody wanting to do data science because data is the way, and AI, etc. But not being able to justify why, or what you understand of data science, or why do you want to go into that field. Rather stick to your solid fundamentals, right? Don't chase what is trendy, because I think even with organizations, I think if you have solid fundamentals, you can always build from that, right? And as I mentioned, no questions at the end. Always ask something genuine, whether it's wanting to know about the culture of the organization, wanting to know about mentorship in the organization. Just always be genuine when it comes to that. Right. Cool. I'm hoping we're going to finish sooner so that those that are missing the game can catch the game. So some career advice and growth advice as well. What to do this semester. Like I mentioned, if you haven't started applying, please do. Time is ticking, and you don't want to find yourself in a situation where it is October and you want to start applying for grad programs and they're all closed, right? So it is quite important to apply from the jump, like from get-go. So basically, these are some of the trajectory, and this is based off of what we have at Entelect. So we obviously have our boot camp, and then from boot camp, we then do have, you join as a software engineer, and then from software engineer, you obviously get onto project teams. On those project teams, you're either a software engineer or an intermediate software engineer. Then you can then go on to being a senior engineer, and then there is a tech and a team lead. And then there's obviously architect, and then your delivery managers or your managers, right? So we obviously have mentorship that lasts. So you have your tech leads and your senior leadership that mentor you during the boot camp, and they stay accessible even after boot camp, right? It's not just you see this person in boot camp and that's it. If you want that person to be your mentor, you chat to them, they can be your mentor throughout your career. Academic courses, certifications is what we have at Entelect. So in terms of learning through the academic courses, your certifications, we also have something that's called Tech Accelerator. So I think, like I said, growth isn't optional. So what we do with Tech Accelerator is where intellectuals can basically be like form a team or form a business or whatever. This one thing that you've always wanted to create, and we give you the freedom to do that. We give you the tools, the budget, you keep the IP, and basically you bring together a team and you guys can create any system or any app that you want to create. And that's where Tech Accelerator comes in, where we're literally saying to people, nurse and enhance those skills that you have to be innovative, and we want our people to be innovative as well. So it's not just you making money for Entelect and that's it. You can't have your own side projects. We encourage people to have side projects, and that's how we do it with Tech Accelerator, where we give you the time, we give you the budget, and you also keep the IP as well. And then there's definitely a lot of progression within Entelect. 35% of our staff, like I mentioned, started as grads, and to go from grad to CTO has happened at Entelect, or from grad to CEO has happened from Entelect. And we celebrate promotions. We have promotions twice a year, and we celebrate them company-wide, right? So we want people to grow in our organization. We don't want people to be stagnant. And I think that's quite important when you are looking for an organization to be part of, is understanding what the growth really looks like in that organization, what the learning really looks like in that organization, what mentorship really looks like, because then you understand that these are people that want to see you grow, right? Cool. And then we need to start now, right? What you do this semester shapes next year's application. For some of you, if you're in your second and first year, if you're in your third year, this is the time now to start building, right? Yes, you can have personal projects, you build your portfolio, your GitHub, a clean GitHub, 2 to 3 finished projects or projects that are still running, beats 20 abandoned repos, right? So deploy something live, try that, see how that goes. Also build some personal projects, solve a problem you actually have. An app, budgeting app, a study tracker, a timetable tracker, a bot, something for Entelect challenge. Maybe you see there's a gap there, you can do that. Network deliberetely. Cannot stress this enough. A lot of you probably think having a LinkedIn profile is not really important. Why do I need to have this? So you'll join LinkedIn and you'll just have like your name, your university. I'm studying BSc computing, and I'm studying at UNISA. No profile picture, nothing, zero. I always say LinkedIn is your online CV. Right? So put in the time. Keep your LinkedIn up to date. Make it your online CV. Take some time to really go through your LinkedIn and honestly put in the effort, right? It also shows, and something employers will be impressed about, to say, oh, okay, this person's taken the time to put effort in their LinkedIn. Connect with people from the different organizations that you want to work for. Send them messages on LinkedIn. They're usually really helpful. I know with intellectuals, we're usually really helpful. You can message anyone from Entelect, they will usually reply and they will give you tips around, the interview process. Some of them, it might be long while since they've, but if you connect with like a recent grad, they can give you tips as well. They'll be able to answer your questions as well. They're usually very helpful. Attend your career fairs, attend your meetups, be part and parcel of like societies and events. Like, just be deliberate about your networking, because sometimes an opportunity is not going to come from you applying with your CV. It could come from just how you network, right? So it's also quite important. And gaining experience, it's not that kind of experience where you want 2 to 3 years, but being able to do some tutoring on the side, freelance gigs, just to upskill yourself, right? Hackathons, some VAC work, if you can't get VAC work. These all count as experience on your CV, and it just shows you going over and above, right? And before we close off, or as I close off, if there's anything, because it was quite a long presentation, but if there are 5 takeaways. Number 1, shift your mindset. Think impact and ownership. Move away from thinking about grades and deadlines, right? Number 2, your employers hire humans, not transcripts. So yes, transcripts might be important, but your communication, your attitude, those things set you apart. And as well as apply early, right? Graduate opportunities close earlier than you think. So like I say, if you have time tonight, make sure you start applying. List those 5 companies you want to work for, your top 5, apply to those companies, apply to the roles that they have. And then in interviews, show your thinking out loud. Process beats that perfect answer. We want to see your process. We want to see your thinking. We want to hear your thinking as well, right? And number 5, build one project you're proud of and one genuine connection, right? Both of them will then compound. So just make sure that project you're proud of, a connection. When you do connect with people on LinkedIn, make sure that, okay, cool, I'm building a genuine connection here because I know that eventually it will come to fruition. But yeah, that is me. And I just want to thank you guys so much for taking the time to listen to me today and for joining the call. So I think I will open it up to questions for those who have questions.
Hi, how are you?
I am good, thank you, Mulubufeng.
I'm good as well. I'm doing my second year, right, in mathematics and computer science. So am I eligible to apply, or I should wait till I'm a graduate because it's a 3-year program?
So I would suggest that you apply when you get to your 3rd year. So you can apply now in 2nd year.
My
And
final year.
yes, when you get to your final year. So when you do, I mean, like you can apply now, but we're not really going to do anything with the application now. And we'll only revisit that application when you get to your final year. So I think the best thing would be when you get to third year, I would advise that you do apply and probably apply in January, right? And you will then apply with your first and second year transcripts because you wouldn't have your final year transcripts. So you'll apply to your first year, your second year transcripts as well.
Thank you.
Awesome. Ellen, I hope I'm saying it right.
Good evening. Thank you very much for such a wonderful session. I wanted to ask, so when I took my first year, I kind of took a gap year immediately after because of financial situation. I came to finish my first year modules, and my first incredible bad. Disadvantage me in some way because first year my marks, the ones that I did pass, I passed horribly, and I had like a couple of subs. But now I've managed to get my marks back up above 70 and average, and now they're about. I'm sure by the end of the year they'll be able to go above 80. But I want to know if those past mistakes will still be haunting me.
No, they shouldn't haunt you. I think it would haunt you if they continued. So I mean, one, varsity is not easy, firstly, and I think having a bad year is not going to disqualify you, right? So you can have a bad year. I mean, there's people that have failed a full year, and when they went back again, they picked up their marks. I think the main important thing is to see that there's been improvement. So you didn't do so well, but you realized you didn't do well, and you saw where you didn't do well, and you then managed to pick up from there. So that shouldn't disqualify you.
All right, thank you very much for the encouragement.
No problem. All right, Lissetti.
Yes, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Great. So I just wanted to ask, typically, I'm aware this might differ, obviously, depending on the situation, budgets, and whatever. But on average, how many intellectuals would you say Intellect absorbs every year within its graduate program, and on average, an estimation?
Okay, so 2023 was our biggest one. We had about 140 grads. This year was our second biggest one, where we hired about 134 grads, right? And these are all permanent employees from day one. Like I mentioned, we hire our grads permanent from day one. So typically we'd hire about 75 to 100 grads every year. So we're not really about like budgets, because obviously a bulk of our junior staff is made up from grads. So we don't really hire junior engineers. We usually hire our graduates, which are our junior engineers. So we do invest quite a lot in our graduates. I hope that answers your question. Right. And Notando.
Hi. I'm well aware that you said that you guys don't take people who are doing diplomas. But what advice would you give to someone like me? I'm doing a diploma in software engineering at Weaving Code. What advice would you give to someone like me who really wants to work at Intellect, but they don't qualify? They don't qualify because of the qualification.
I think with the diploma, what I would advise, and it's not something I like advising, but I think I've seen it work, is that I would say, like, obviously working on a few side projects to build that technical knowledge side of things, and also gaining some experience within the industry, right? So you've obviously done your diploma at Rethink Code, so being maybe able to land a software engineer role where you can be in that role for about 4 years and actually like doing the technical stuff and then applying to Intellect. Because I think after 4 years of relevant industry experience, whether you have a diploma or a degree, it doesn't then really make a difference. We will then be looking at the kind of work that you've done. So I think that would be the best advice that I can give you.
Okay, thank you so much.
No problem. Zandre.
Hey Thabiso, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
How are you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. I just want to find out from you. I am currently in my final year doing applied maths and physics. How does one apply?
Right, cool. So I see in the link someone put in the in the chat. There's someone that's put the link. But you can apply via our culture site. It is in the chat. And you would then attach your CV, your transcripts as well. Just make sure it's your transcripts from first year to date. And as well as, you know, selecting what role that you're applying for. So I'm guessing with your qualification, it would be more around the data engineering side of things. I could be wrong. I stand to be corrected. But then just also specifying the role that you are applying for.
All right, cool. Thank you.
No problem. All right, and Lesego.
Hi, Thabiso, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you, Lesego?
I'm good, good. Thank you. Such an amazing presentation. I'm currently doing my first year. So I want to know, because I'm working at the same time, that does it affect the duration that you have to complete your qualification when you do your application on your final year? Or how does it work? Do you need someone who's doing full-time or part-time?
So part-time or full-time is not really like, I mean, we've hired a couple of UNISA students as well. So it's not really a factor. I think the factor would be if you are currently working in a field where you are already a developer. It wouldn't make sense then, especially if you have like more than 2 years experience working. I don't think it would then make sense for you to apply for the grad program. But whether you're studying part-time or full-time, it really isn't a big factor for us.
All right. But if you are not working in the IT space, you just want to transition from that space, but you do have a work experience, but it's not in the computer science, and you're studying computer science, will still that be okay?
Yeah, that would then be fine for you to apply for the grad program, as long as it's not relevant industry experience. So if you're doing computer science and you're also maybe working as a developer, it would be a bit of a, okay, you do have experience, you know, you've worked with it, but if you want to transition, then you can do that. We've had quite a few people transition at the age of like 30, where it's like they've been doing, for example, I don't know, HR for like the most part of their career. They get a degree in computer science and they transition. I think with transitioning, it's also understanding that, especially for people that are older, you are going to come into a space where it's relatively young people. And a lot of the time, the team is going to ask how you feel about that. And, you know, sometimes when you are older in that space, you kind of feel a bit left out. But if you're able to gel in well, then it shouldn't be an issue.
All right. Awesome. Thank you.
Cool, thanks. And Sabang.
Hello,
Hi, Sabang. How are you?
I'm getting you. I wanted to ask, I understand that you don't accept people who have diplomas, but what about things like advanced diplomas or postgraduate diplomas? Do you want specifically BSc, or do those also help, or how does that work?
So that is still a bit of a debate on our end. At the moment, we are not looking into the advanced diplomas as well, but I think it's also something that my team and I are investigating, because there's also quite an element of, I think, an advanced diploma being equivalent to an NQF7, which is the same as a degree. So at the moment, we're still not taking any of those, but I think once we have settled this debate and also weighed how it is compared to the actual degree, and if they weigh the same, then it might be something that we look at in the future. But at the moment, no, we don't look at those, unfortunately.
Oh, okay.
Right. And I see M Shabuse. I'm sorry if I butchered your surname.
Hi,
Hi.
no stress. I'm doing BS Informatics in my second year. You said with someone who asked the question about first or second years applying that it would be better to apply in our third years.
Mhm.
I wanted to ask for us first and second year who uh w what would you advise us at the moment that we should be doing to boost our chances of getting accepted, and also what other opportunities do you think we should be looking for during our first and second years?
That's a very good question. So I think now the main thing is to firstly find something that you're passionate about. So start building those projects, and slowly getting comfortable with building projects and working on projects and like upskilling on the side. Getting involved with tutoring as well, is also quite important. And it will boost that as well. And your LinkedIn profile. So get involved with LinkedIn, start looking at those companies that you want to work in, and start targeting them, right? So building your LinkedIn profile, starting with your CV as well. Don't wait till you get to final year for a CV, because I think once you build your LinkedIn profile and you connect with the relevant recruiters from the relevant organizations, you can then easily reach out to them when they have their VAC work opportunities and go to those organizations for VAC work. And I think just like start to make yourself a well-rounded candidate. So I'd say start working on those side projects, start upskilling, start understanding, okay, this is the way that industry is going. What are the skills that I require, right? And connecting with the relevant people from the different organizations where you can say, listen, can I come to your organization just to job shadow for the day in this specific field? Because I think when you're in your first and your second year, that kind of gives an idea, like you have an idea of what you want to do with your career, but not so much. So having opportunities like job shadowing, etc., will really help you by the time you get to third year, where you're like, actually, this is what I want to do. So I think that would be my advice right now. Get your CV in order, get your LinkedIn in order, start building those projects, and start making the connections with the relevant people that work at the organizations that you feel this is where I want to work in the future.
No, thank you.
All right, cool. Shifra, I think that is you. Sorry, I see your hand has been up.
No problem. Thank you so much. So I wanted to ask about honors, because I'm currently in my final year and I do want to do my honors, but would you recommend first doing a graduate program and then doing honors? Because most of the banks graduate programs require honors minimum, but I want to know about Intellect. Like, would you recommend first doing the graduate program? Because I know you guys do take just bachelor's, or do you think honors first?
So I will say that honors is a personal choice. And when it comes to Intellect, right? So we're not picky as to whether you have your honors or don't have your honors. It's not going to change the pay that you get as well, whether you have your honors or not, because we always say whether you have an honors or an undergrad, the one thing that you don't have is experience. So that is something that we go by to say honors is a personal choice, right? But it's not a heavy requirement on our end. I think it's also about why you're doing honors. If it's something that you feel this is something that's very strong for me, I really need to do my honors, then that's perfectly fine. Alternatively, we do have people that come in, they join in on the grad program, they kind of get a feel for the organization for a year. They understand how the organization works, and then the following year they go and they do their honors part-time. So there is that as an option. But I think from Intellect's perspective, whether you have an honors or not, it really doesn't I know some organizations will say, if you have an honors, we'll pay you more. You know, there's that perception of like, if I have an honors, which means I'm better than. Within the tech space, the most important thing is experience. And I think that's where the differentiating factor comes in. But with Intellect, honors or undergrad, it really is not a requirement. Your undergrad is just perfectly fine.
Thank you so much.
No problem. And then P and Sabo.
Hi,
Yes.
am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Cool. I wanted to ask, I know you have 3 streams for the graduate programs that you're hiring for. Is it advisable to apply for one, or can you apply for more than one? For example, the data engineering and full stack software engineering. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to be honest with you guys, I think from a recruiter point of view, and I think this will also help with all the other applications that you make to other organizations. I think being decisive about what you want is quite important. And usually when people do apply with all of the roles that we have available, and I do have a conversation, and it's usually like, I get it, because the job market is very tough, right? Like, give me anything, I will work, right? That is the mentality. But I think being able to be decisive and knowing what you want is quite important, right? And it also just helps the recruiter know what exactly we are interviewing for, and what exactly or where your strong points lie. So I would advise that when you are applying, try resist the urge to apply for all of them, right? So if you apply for the software engineering one, apply for the software engineering. If you make it through to like a screening call, etc., you know, you can say like, listen, I did apply for software engineering because I feel that is where my strengths are. However, I do have an interest in data engineering, and is it possible? And I mean, the recruiter will make a note of that. And I think when we are interviewing, we always try our best to see, it's not really about the skill that we're interviewing, it's more about the talent. So if it is good talent, we'll say, okay, maybe this person's not going to work as a software engineer, but they'll work as a data engineer. Hi, you know, we know you interviewed for a software engineering role, but we see you thriving within the data space. Is that something you'd be keen for? I think that works better compared to when you apply, you just apply for everything. And I think if you're confused and you don't know, rather, there's an option on our site that just says the graduate role, which is also still fine. And we can always explore where we feel you'd best fit during our conversation. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, thank you.
Cool. I see there is questions in the chat, so I'll just answer those. And Dikeledi asked, is there a difference between a pre-screening interview and a fit interview? So the pre-screening interview is mainly just a getting to know you, but it can also be a fit interview. So some organizations make a whole fit interview where they have 1,000 stages. We don't really have that at Intellect. It's literally just a screening, and then from a screening, it's an interview if you did well. So within the screening, there will be a fit interview where we'll ask questions, you know, related to fit as well. So it really just depends on the organization that you're interviewing with, but there really isn't a difference because the questions are more or less the same. And then Jonathan asked, how many people are typically in an interview or conducting the interview? So it depends, right? So, and I'll speak to Intellect with our one-on-one interview. So this is usually for the data grads and the business analyst grads. You guys usually have a one-on-one interview. And with that, it would be yourself and 2 interviewers. Right. And then when you come in for an open day, which is more for the software graduates, this is obviously where you guys will be doing a lot of group coding, etc. You have about 6 interviewers on the day that are obviously just roaming, just obviously looking at how you guys are coding and you have different eyes, etc. And then on the same day, you would then have a one-on-one interview. And in that one-on-one interview, it would be yourself and one of the six people from the organization. So not really like a panel interview. Hi, does a WeThink transcript work too? So WeThink code, unfortunately not. At the moment, I think it's more or less on the same side as the diploma side of things, something that we are still grappling with. I think the main thing, guys, with the degree is that they are the fundamentals that we see. And it's not that we haven't tried and tested it, right? So, I mean, in the past, we have hired someone with a diploma and they went through boot camp, and it was actually a tough experience for them to adjust in boot camp, because a lot of some of the things that we're doing in boot camp were not really touched on within the diploma. So I think there's obviously a level of the fundamentals that the degree offers that the diploma really doesn't. But again, it's something my team and I are looking into, and hopefully we can resolve that soon. All right. Would the process look just as technical for business analysts? Yes. So for business analysts, it is also quite technical. So this would be your informatics, your information systems, those guys. There is a technical element, but it's obviously related to building a system, requirements, gathering requirements as a business analyst, documentation, but there is going to be some problem solving, some whiteboard problem solving, where you have to take us through your thinking and, talk through your problem solving as well. Bachelor of Science, Chemistry and Physics. Interesting one. Look, again, it's a science degree. One thing we do pride ourselves with at Entelect is that we've hired degrees that we never thought we would. I think we hired it was a physical science and astronomy or something along those lines. And that person became a software engineer. I think it also depends on what route you want to go. And if it is the software engineering route, what are the things that you're doing on the side to kind of upskill in that? But again, if the talent is good, the problem solving element is good, we'll definitely hire good talent. All right, and then a question from Debo. What does the interview process typically look like for data engineering roles, and which language, tools, or concepts are mostly? So with data engineering, it's more or less the same, maybe minus the coding. Whiteboard problem solving, thinking through the problems, having good knowledge of SQL is also quite important, as well as your data structures, algorithms, databases. Quite important to have that information as well. Okay. We do take BSc computing from UNISA, Lesotho. We've actually hired quite a few of those, so it is a degree that we look at. Institution is not really, but we do take the BSc computing. Currently with doing WeThink code software engineering alongside my final year at UNISA, and in my own time, I've been getting into quantitative research through World Quant Brain. Do you have project teams or roles where software engineering and data actually overlap? Because intersection is, So we do have those quite a lot. I mean, we look at things through the full software development lifecycle. So there are times where there's a project where you're going to need a data engineer and a software engineer, and things are overlapping. A lot of our projects are like that. I think on a project, you'll have a business analyst, data engineer, a software engineer. So there are quite a lot of those overlaps on our projects. I just wanted to ask, I just recently graduated with a Bachelor of Arts degree in which I majored in information systems. Is the fact that it's a BA degree going to decrease my chances of being considered? No, it shouldn't decrease your chances. Again, it's about technical understanding, problem solving. Do you understand the fundamentals that you learned in your qualification? And if so, then it shouldn't hinder you from that, right? You mentioned that you take about 75 to 100 grads. How many applicants do you get yearly on average? I think we get over 3,000 applications a year. think last year we were sitting about 6,000 or 6,000. So yeah, we do get quite a lot of applications, and because we don't want to miss out, we kind of still do it quite manually as well, where we actually have someone that sits through applications and looks through them. So yeah, we do get quite a lot of applications. And does age affect being selected for the graduate program above 30 years old? Age shouldn't be a problem. I think, like I had mentioned when Lesego had asked, I think it's also about, are you relatable, right? I think the oldest we have hired is about 30, 31 so far during my time. But it's also just about the passion that you have for the craft, and I think if the passion is there, it's definitely possible. So yeah, I think those were all the questions. But yeah, guys, this was really lovely, and thank you so much for the questions. If there's any other questions that you guys do have, you guys are more than welcome to reach out to me on LinkedIn, and I'll be able to answer those questions that you have. But I will hand over back to the Dev Society. I hope the game is still on. I feel so bad because we were here, but shout out to you guys for being here during the game. But I'll hand over to the Dev Society to close off.
Thank you so much, Thabiso, for hosting us. Well, we hosted you, but you basically did the session. So thank you so much. I think I can speak for everyone. This was really informative for us. I think especially as UNISA students, you're not quite sure where to start. So this really gave a lot of us direction and where to go from where we currently are. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And yeah, I think that will be all from my side. I hope everyone has a good evening. Hopefully, you're able to catch a few minutes of the game. I'm not sure how this stuff works because I don't really watch it. But yeah, hopefully you can get highlights or something. But thank you for everyone that attended, and I hope we all have a good evening.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.